Mom, Mia shouted from her room, should I take the yellow hat? Yes, take it, her mother called back from the living room. It will go perfectly with your green swimsuit. Mia had just turned 6. A grand adventure awaited her. First, they had to visit Grandma and Grandpa. They lived in Kadakes, and then Cyprus. Mia had never been to this marvelous island. For some reason, she felt that fairies and gnomes must surely live there. She eagerly anticipated meeting them. "Oh, my dear little ones!" Grandma exclaimed, greeting them at the gate. "Fernanda! My dear, it's been so long since I held you in my arms. Manuel, my boy! How glad I am to see you! And where is my sweet little candy Mia? There you are, my darling." Grandma hugged each one in turn, her eyes shining with love and happiness. "Carla, dear, calm down," Grandpa Victor said, picking Mia up. "Remember your heart." "Hello, my dears," he added, embracing his daughter and son-in-law. "Let's go inside quickly." Grandma bustled. "Everything is ready." They were all so hungry from the journey that they practically ran to the Carino couple's house. Grandma and Grandpa always welcomed their daughter, son-in-law, and granddaughter with special honor. Grandma Carla usually prepared her famous seafood paella and croquettes. There was no need to mention the various salads. This time, the reception, as always, was magnificent. The table was overflowing with delicacies. As they ate, they talked about everything. Manuel told Victor about his wonderful research institute, which served as his second home, about new developments in microbiology, and other matters. Fernanda chatted with her mom about her women's group. Mia silently enjoyed the treats Grandma Carla had prepared and couldn't wait to go to the garden, which she simply adored. "Do you want some more marmalade, my little kitten?" Grandma asked Mia. "If I eat one more sesame seed, I'll burst, Granny," Mia exclaimed, jumping up from the table and running to the garden. Grandpa had already set up the trampoline for his granddaughter. There were also swings, a sandbox, and a slide just for her. Mia loved visiting her grandparents' house. The sea was within arm's reach, everything was so green and somehow magical. When Mia returned home from here, she usually brought several albums of drawings, such bright, vivid drawings that she created under the impression of one event or another, or simply depicted what she saw or what she was told. The pencil became Mia's friend when she turned 4. Grandpa gave his granddaughter a book that vividly showed how to draw animals quickly and easily. Mia fell in love with this colorful little book and never let it out of her hands. Mia's parents were happy that their child had such a wonderful, healthy hobby. Many of their acquaintances complained that besides smartphones and tablets, children weren't interested in anything else. They planned to leave the next morning. The tickets were for 7 in the evening. Mia chatted incessantly about going to the magical island where fairies and gnomes lived, who would give her pencils that never needed sharpening, and they would draw forever. But by evening, Mia suddenly developed a high fever. "What's wrong?" Fernanda worried. She was fine. "Don't worry, dear," Manuel reassured her. "It's just overexcitement. Tomorrow morning, everything will be fine, you'll see." But Mia wasn't getting any better. Her head and throat were aching now. The girl lay there weakly, not even talking about the magical island anymore, drifting in and out of sleep and asking for water. "There's no question of any trip," Carla, Carl's grandmother, bustled around. "You'll have to give up Mia's ticket." "But we promised her." Fernanda protested. "We can't do this to our daughter." "Darling, your mother is absolutely right," Victor reassured her, patting her hand. "Mia is better off staying with us, and you two should go. Relax to your heart's content." "No, then we won't fly either," Fernanda replied. "Don't be silly, my dear," Carla said. "You and Manuel are always working, never taking a break. You can't miss this opportunity. Don't worry, dear, we'll take care of our granddaughter. Everything will be fine with her. We'll find something to keep the little one occupied." In the morning, Fernanda and Manuel left, promising to call as often as possible. Mia, whose temperature was still holding, though not as high as yesterday, cried and didn't want to let go of her parents. She hadn't been like this before. And she wasn't upset that they were leaving her here, at her grandparents' house. She just didn't want to part with them for some reason, probably because she was sick. Children often become more anxious when they're sick. At such times, they always want their loved ones to be close by. By evening, Mia was feeling much better. She was already asking when she could go out to the garden. "My little one is getting better," Donna Carla noted lovingly. "No wonder she's getting better. Your herbal tea could lift anyone onto their feet," Grandpa Victor chuckled. "And did Mom call?" Mia asked. "No, sweetheart, she hasn't called yet," Grandma replied. "Maybe they haven't settled in yet, or they don't have the opportunity to call." Donna Carla began to worry about Fernanda and Manuel. They always called at the first opportunity, and they were also worried about their daughter's condition. She decided to call herself, but both of their phones were unreachable. Carla's heart squeezed. She even had to take some medicine. "Carla, please calm down," Victor comforted her. "They'll call soon. Maybe they just can't get in touch yet. They should have arrived and settled in the hotel by now, Victor. Something's not right here. Something happened to our children." Their daughter and son-in-law didn't call the next day either. Mia said nothing, trying to remain calm, but it didn't work out well. Carla started calling the airline where the children had booked their tickets. They were told that Manuel and Fernanda Gomez hadn't registered for the Barcelona-Larnaca flight, and nobody had returned Mia Gomez's child ticket either. "Our children," Carla whispered, clutching her heart. "They didn't fly out of Spain. It's not even clear if they made it home." "Carla, dear, don't panic. Take a sedative and get some rest," Victor urged her. "How can I sleep, Victor? Our daughter and son-in-law are who knows where. The worst could have happened to them. What should we do? We need to report them missing. We need to go home and check." "Carla, I'll take care of everything. Just try to calm down. Take care of your heart, my dear. Think about me and Mia. Victor, please, hurry. Have you called them? Both are unreachable. Mother of God. Granny, what's wrong?" Mia asked as she entered the house and ran to her grandmother. "Is something wrong with Mom and Dad?" "No, darling," Victor replied. "They'll call us soon. There's some issue with the connection. You know, these things happen. Why don't you go to the garden instead? Later, we'll go to the beach. Go, my little flower, go." Victor went to Barcelona. His daughter and son-in-law hadn't shown up at home. The suitcases, prepared for the trip, were standing in the living room. No traces. No one had definitely entered the apartment after the family left for Kadakes. Upon returning, Victor went straight to the police. He came back home exhausted. What should he tell Carla and Mia? Sticky thoughts began to creep into his mind about the worst-case scenario somewhere along the road from Kadakes to Barcelona. The agonizing wait began. Victor held himself together as best he could. He had to reassure his wife and literally instill in his granddaughter that her parents were okay. Days turned into nights, spinning a web of fear and worry. The unknown was tormenting the Carino spouses. Mia, too, caught her grandparents' anxiety. She didn't even draw, just sat in the garden by her favorite rose bed, waiting for her parents to call or just come and say that everything was fine, that they had an incredible story to tell. "Let everything be okay. Let everything be okay with Mom and Dad," the girl whispered, hugging her knees to her chest and curling up into a ball. 5 days had passed since Fernando and Manuel left their parents. On the 6th day, as darkness descended on Kadakes, Victor sat in the garden on a small folding picnic chair. The man couldn't find peace. He had no strength to remain calm in front of his wife and granddaughter. He just sat there, staring into the darkness, as if seeking answers to all his questions. But the darkness didn't respond. It kept secret what had happened to Fernanda and her husband. What? Suddenly Victor's phone rang. I'm listening, he answered quickly. Senor Carino? Yes, yes. We have news about your case. Your daughter and son-in-law. Are they okay? Victor interrupted, his voice breaking. You need to come for identification. We found your son-in-law's car. Victor's hands went cold, his head spun. You said car, but my daughter and son-in-law? Did you not find them? We found 2 charred bodies of a man and a woman in an old house. It's here, in Kadakes, right near the cemetery. Oh God, what an abandoned house near the cemetery. They were heading to Barcelona. They were in a hurry to catch their flight on time. Some teenagers set the house on fire. They, of course, didn't know there were people inside. The house went up like a match. There were cans of paint inside, probably brought by the kids. No one even had time to report the fire. I'll send you the exact address where you should come tomorrow at 9 in the morning, the voice on the other end continued. There were beeps. Victor tossed the phone into the grass and covered his face with his hands. What to tell Carla and Mia? How to survive this nightmare, this terrible tragedy that crashed down like a waterfall, swift and uncontrollable. Victor decided not to tell his wife or, even more so, his granddaughter anything until everything became clear. He lay in bed sleepless. He couldn't understand how Fernanda and Manuel could have ended up in that house near the cemetery. He knew that house. Some people used to live there before, then it was turned into a storage by the cemetery workers, then abandoned altogether, but for some reason, it was never demolished. But what made the children go there, especially before a trip, when they needed to return home and rush to the airport? Again, only questions and not a single answer. Yes, it was Fernanda and her husband Manuel. Their bodies were severely burned, but Victor recognized them. They found a small heart-shaped pendant on a chain. Victor remembered their daughter and son-in-law never took them off since their engagement. Both were romantics at heart, despite the outward restraint imposed by their professions, a leading specialist at the Research Institute, a microbiologist, and a translator. Perhaps some memory of their youth drew them to that house. No one will ever know now. It's hard to describe what Victor, Carla, and little Mia felt. Returning home after the funeral of their relatives, they sat in a tiny gazebo in the corner of the garden, tears no longer falling. I killed them with my own hands, Carla said. Don't say that, dear. You're not to blame for anything. No, I am to blame. It was me who convinced them to go on vacation. If they hadn't gone then, if they had just canceled their tickets, they would be sitting with us now, laughing. The woman covered her face with her hands. She no longer tried to hide anything from Mia. She understood everything and didn't ask about anything anymore. Grandma, don't cry, the girl suddenly said. Mom and Dad are in heaven now. God called them there for some reason. They must be very needed there, very needed. Tears welled up in the girl's eyes, but she tried not to cry, not to upset her grandmother, who already had heart problems. Mia was wise beyond her years and very sensitive. Perhaps that's why she noticed things that others simply passed by and could so beautifully depict the world around her with just a few pencils on paper. August gave way to September. This difficult August took the lives of the 2 closest and most beloved people in the family. Mia started going to school here in Kadakes. The apartment in the capital was empty. It was decided to sell it and put the money into Mia's account. But now there were other worries. The little girl was starting a new school life. Carla and Victor were afraid that it would be hard for her to adjust after such stress, but their granddaughter once again surprised her grandparents. She somehow easily integrated into not only the class, but also the school life. After a while, the girl's drawings made it into the school newspaper. She was spoken of as a talented girl, and they predicted her a career as an artist and worldwide fame. Imagine, Victor, our Mia, the Lord saved her from death. She didn't get sick for nothing then. Carla, please. Don't bring all this up. Don't torture yourself, think about our granddaughter. She needs you. And me, of course. Thank you, my dear, Carla said, taking her husband's hand. If it weren't for you, I wouldn't have survived this nightmare. Carla, we'll get through this. The main thing is that we have each other. And our Mia, our joy and happiness. We must live for her and raise her properly. Look how well she's integrated into school life. What questions interest her? Yes, Nanda was like that too, remember? Of course, I remember. And do you remember she found some self-taught book on Chinese and started figuring it out herself? Yes, our Nanda, a translator sent from heaven. That's why she dedicated herself to languages. Our girl conquered those hieroglyphs. Ah, how much more she could have done. Grandma, Grandpa. Mia burst into the living room like a whirlwind. There's a little mouse. Come quickly. I caught it and put it in a box. Hurry. Can I keep it, please? The girl took both of them by the hands and dragged them somewhere to the back door of the house. Mia. This girl wasn't afraid of anyone, not spiders, not frogs, not worms, and she simply adored mice. It seemed she loved the whole world, every living creature, every pebble under her feet. A girl with an angelic soul, those who knew little Mia would say, this girl with dark brown eyes and mischievous curls on her head. Everything made a special impression on her, and then that impression turned into a drawing or even several drawings. Mia was a breath of fresh air for Carla and Victor, instilling hope for the better and giving quiet joy, warming their hearts, which had suffered from the irreparable loss of children. They always referred to Manuel as their son, and he loved them as his parents, whom he lost when he was very young. Gradually Carla began to spoil her husband and granddaughter again with her delicacies and smiled more often. It seemed like everything was getting better. They coped with the great sorrow that had befallen them. But in the spring, grandfather and granddaughter had to face another blow. Carla started feeling unwell towards the evening. She held onto her heart, finding it difficult to breathe. The ambulance arrived quickly, and she was taken to the hospital. I'll go with her, Victor started to say. It's not necessary. Your wife will be in the intensive care unit, and you have your granddaughter. We'll inform you about Mrs. Carino's condition. You can also find out how she is by calling this number. The doctor handed him a white card with the intensive care unit phone number. Victor didn't sleep all night, sitting by Mia's bedside, who kept waking up and twitching in her sleep. No, I can't lose my Carla too. No, not this, Victor whispered, gripping his temples with both hands. Around 7 in the morning, Victor received a call informing him that his wife had passed away about half an hour ago. The doctors did everything they could, but they couldn't save her. Her heart was too weak, and the shock of losing their daughter and son-in-law simply killed her. That's when Victor realized he would have to raise his granddaughter alone. He would do everything to make her childhood happy, to make her grow into a good person and achieve much in life. Victor worked as a veterinarian at a clinic not far from home. He was valued for his professionalism and kind attitude towards animals. Sometimes people brought their pets directly to him at home. To provide a more or less decent life for his granddaughter and himself, Victor sometimes had to work part-time as a taxi driver. This was in demand in their resort town. Mia had to become more independent, helping her grandfather take care of the house. She became very quiet, hardly ever smiled. Only in those moments when the girl took her sketchbook and pencil in her hands, her face lit up with some unearthly light. True, her drawings were not as bright as before, but they remained just as deep and incredibly beautiful. Once Mia was walking home from a little shop that sold delicious pastries. Spoiling themselves with pastries and other tasty treats was something she and her grandfather enjoyed doing together. At first, she noticed one rather large dog, and then another. They were coming straight towards her. Mia wasn't afraid of dogs. On the contrary, she always wanted to pet them or treat them with something. But this time fear took over her. The dogs were snarling and even growling softly. Mia didn't know what to do. She stood there, her back pressed against the kiosk at the bus stop, which lay on her way home. Suddenly, a young man jumped out of the gray minibus and shielded the frightened girl, then threw an unfinished pie at the snarling dogs. They rushed for the prey and left them alone. "Did they hurt you, little one?" the driver asked gently, squatting down in front of Mia. "No. I just got scared," she replied, clutching the paper bag with her purchases tightly. "It's okay, don't be afraid. Let me walk you home." "No, thank you, I can manage." The girl handed the kind stranger a roll she took from the bag. "Here, take this, since you had to give your pie to the dogs." "Thank you, sweetheart. Maybe I should still accompany you? I live very close by, it's okay." "You have a funny little bus," the girl smiled, as if from a cartoon. "Thank you. I love everything cheerful, so I stuck smiley faces to make people feel warmer inside when they look at them." They said goodbye, and Mia headed home. The driver watched the little girl for a long time, wanting to make sure everything was okay. The phone rang. "Yes, Agatha," the driver answered. "Philip, it's a matter of days now," his wife cried. "The doctors say if we don't get Izzy surgery within a week, she'll never walk again, irreversible damage will occur. What do we do? We don't have that kind of money. This surgery can only be done in Barcelona at the San Juan de Dios clinic. It's the closest, and the operation is complex. We need advanced equipment. I don't know. Do we have to sell everything we have?" "Agatha, wait. Stop panicking. I'll think of something." "But what can we think of? Where can we get that much money so quickly?" "Where?" "Agatha, stop yelling at me. I'm just a bus driver, I'm not a millionaire. But I'll try to do something. I'll find the money." Philip knew he couldn't find that kind of money anywhere, even if they sold their little house and old sedan. 3 days later, Izzy's treating doctor called Agatha. "Mrs. Lopez, Izzy can be transported to San Juan de Dios tomorrow after lunch. You need to sign consent and other documents. Come right now." "What do you mean can be transported to San Juan de Dios? We can't afford the surgery and everything else, The surgery is paid for, transportation too." "What? This must be some mistake." Agatha's hands were trembling. "No, there's no mistake." "But who? Who did this? We don't even have any relatives." "Mr. Carino. Victor Carino. Do you know him?" "No, I've never heard of him." "All right, right now what matters is getting Izzy to the clinic and having the surgery as soon as possible. Then there's a chance for the girl to walk and live a full life." Agatha and Filippo went together to the clinic where their 9-year-old daughter was lying. When all the necessary papers were signed, the doctor handed Filippo a white envelope. "Senor Carino asked me to give this to you." "Thank you," he replied, quickly hiding the envelope in his pocket. The joy of the spouses knew no bounds. They had no idea who this wizard, Victor Carino, was. Now, with Izzy, their little daughter, everything would be fine. They knew it, they believed it with all their being. Izzy grew up as a slightly unusual child. It seemed like there were 2 girls inside her at once. One craved frenetic activity, climbing trees, jumping into the water from a rope swing, spending hours riding a bike, and playing football with the boys. The other sought to explore the world through reading, and at the age of 8, Izzy discovered her talent as a writer. She wrote such wonderful fairy tales, and sometimes even parables, that left her teachers in awe. Her works were often printed in the school newspaper. The parents often joked, "Daughter, are you a sportswoman or a writer today?" "A writer," the girl replied, making a funny face, grabbed her notebook and pen, and trotted off to her room or to her favorite chair, placed between 2 lilac bushes by the fence. It was there that new plots, characters, and various intricacies were born, which Izzy poured onto paper with her hasty handwriting. One spring day, feeling like an athlete, Izzy was walking on the playground. She climbed to the top of the highest ladder and sat there like a little bird on a perch. Suddenly, she noticed that the boys were crowding around a little girl, begging her for something, whether candies or a bun. Izzy couldn't make out what it was. The girl quickly moved to the edge and tried to slide down the pole, like a monkey from a palm tree, but one hand slipped, and she, unable to hold on, fell down. It hurt terribly somewhere near her tailbone, and then the girl lost consciousness. She woke up as she was being wheeled down the hospital corridor on a stretcher. And now she lay on a hospital bed, unable to move her legs. She couldn't feel them at all. It was scary and sad. The only things that saved her were the books her parents brought her and a tablet with games. But Izzy quickly grew tired and spent most of her time sleeping. "What's in that envelope?" Agatha asked when the spouses returned home. "Oh, I completely forgot about it. Imagine, there will be a bill in there now. Or a contract to sell our sinful souls. I'm in, as long as my sweet girl is healthy." "Me too," Filippo smiled slightly sadly and opened the envelope. The man pulled out a drawing and a letter. He began to read aloud. "Dear Filippo, you don't know me, and I don't know you. But you have done a great good. You saved my only granddaughter, my only living being left on this planet. In my childhood, I was bitten by a huge dog. It seriously injured me. The scar on my face remains, reminding me of what happened. I am immensely grateful to you. Mia told me about you and your cheerful bus. I made inquiries and learned about your daughter Izzy, such a beautiful name. I want her to live a full life. Let her be operated on in Barcelona as soon as possible." The drawing that is in this envelope along with the letter was drawn by my granddaughter Mia. She says it will help Izzy recover faster. If she says so, then it must be true. Be happy. Victor Carino. Dear Maria. What a generous man this Carino is. Filippo, is it true? What? What's true? He didn't understand. Tears welled up in his eyes, as if contemplating whether to start rolling down his cheeks or stay put. Did you save that little girl from the dogs? From two, my darling. They had her pinned to the kiosk at the bus stop. I couldn't just stand by and watch. Though I did pay a price for it. What price? Agatha was surprised. Half of a pie that served as my lunch that day. Poor Filippo, Agatha patted her husband on the shoulder. But Mia, by the way, I only learned her name today, repaid me with kindness for kindness. She gave me a bun she had just bought. I couldn't refuse. Of course, my husband wouldn't refuse a fresh bun. Our little Barry will come back, and we'll make your favorite churros with her. Filippo murmured. I wish Izzy were home soon. Yes, I can't wait to see her healthy again. Of course, she'll have to recover for a long time, as a spine injury is very serious, but I think we'll manage. We just want our bunny to be able to walk. We'll definitely manage now. Filippo pulled his wife closer. After the incident with the dogs, Mia often remembered the kind driver Filippo who rushed to save her. It wasn't just that amazed her. He didn't start waving sticks at the animals, beating them, but simply threw his meat pie to distract them. Mia herself was very fond of animals. As her parents said, she was her grandfather's granddaughter. You can't deny that. The girl thought not only about Filippo but also about his daughter Izzy. She drew kind, bright, and funny pictures for her. She dreamed of giving them to her when they meet, when she recovers and can walk and even run. Maybe they'll become friends? Mia missed female company so much. Yes, there were teachers, girlfriends at school, but she wanted to chat with her mom or grandma before bed. She wanted someone to braid interesting braids for her, like other girls in her class. Lourdes sometimes even had tiny beads woven into her braids. Mia had a grandfather whom she simply adored, but he couldn't replace her mom and grandma. Why are you sad, my little bee? Asked Grandpa Victor one evening before bedtime, as he brought his granddaughter a glass of milk with honey for the night. Grandpa, I miss Mom, Dad, and Grandma. Why did God take them away from us? All at once. Even my mouse Luli ran away from me yesterday. I feel so lonely. I love you very much. You're the best grandpa in the world, but I understand, kiddo. It's hard for you. It's hard for me too. I miss your parents and grandma too. All that's left are memories, which we'll cherish in our hearts forever. Yeah, I know. Grandpa, did a dog really bite you when you were a child? Indeed, Mia, pure truth. I was about 5 or 6 then. She just popped out of nowhere. I wanted to pet the dog, but for some reason, she didn't like it. She first grabbed my hands, then she bit me right on the cheek. When my mom saw me covered in blood, she nearly fainted. What happened to that dog? I never saw her again, sweetheart, never. And yet you still decided to become a veterinarian? Yes, I didn't stop loving dogs after that horrible incident. I love all animals. They have pure souls. They don't betray or envy like many people do. Grandpa, let's get a pet, shall we? The girl suggested. Let's start with a hamster, shall we? I'm okay with that. Luli's cage is still there, and we have food too. Tomorrow after school, come to my workplace. We'll go to the pet store together, the one where we bought food for your mouse. We'll pick the most beautiful hamster and get it. Deal? Deal, agreed Mia. That night, Mia dreamed of Izzy. She was walking barefoot on the sand, and the beach was completely empty. Then she approached Mia and handed her a very beautiful seashell on her palm. It was not an ordinary seashell, but consisted of 2 halves that could be opened like a box. Open the shell, Izzy said cheerfully. Mia complied. When she lifted the top lid, she couldn't believe her eyes. There sat a tiny white hamster with a silvery stripe on its back. The girl had seen such hamsters in the pet store next to the veterinary clinic where her grandpa worked. It was a pleasant dream. When Mia woke up, she felt happy and warm-hearted. That day, she got a hamster, not in a seashell as Izzy gave her in her dream, the daughter of a kind bus driver. Izzy was moved to a regular ward from the intensive care unit. The girl felt fine, just still too weak and slept a lot. When she woke up, she took Mia's drawing from the bedside table and stared at the cute chubby kitten, which looked so endearing straight into her eyes, sitting on lush green grass. Her mood instantly lifted. I really want to see this Mia, thought Izzy, closing her eyes and trying to imagine what this girl, who managed to draw such a mood-lifting kitten for her, looks like for several days now. A week later, Izzy was transferred back to Kadakes Hospital. And just a few days later, the girl was already back home. She slowly started walking again. Her parents threw a party to celebrate Izzy's return. When the table was already set, Filippo went somewhere. Surprise, exclaimed her father as he entered the living room with a man and a little girl. This is Senor Carino and his granddaughter Mia. You can just call me Victor, the guest smiled. Mia, so that's you. Izzy attempted to get up from the table. Hi, the little guest said as she approached her. Hi. Your cat always cheered me up at the hospital. You know, I wrote a fairy tale. Especially for you. Really? That's awesome. No one has ever written me fairy tales before. After dinner, the girls went to Izzy's room and chatted happily there. Victor stayed in the living room with the Lopez spouses. It looks like our girls will get along well, Filippo smiled. My Mia really misses having a friend. A real friend. In her class, as she says, they're all just silly, they only want to run around and play. Your Izzy is a whole different story. Victor, I wanted to thank you, Agatha said nervously. You did the impossible, you saved our little girl's legs. Now she'll walk and live fully. I can't even find the words. We owe you our whole lives. Agatha, there's no need to exaggerate. I couldn't have done otherwise. After all, I only have my little Mia left. If something happened to her, I would never forgive myself. I lost my daughter and son-in-law first, and then my wife a few months later. Mia and I are alone in this world. We have no one closer than each other. Oh God. How sad. I'm so sorry. What happened? Filippo asked. And Victor told these young people his sad story. Agatha cried, not hiding her tears from the men, and Filippo sighed heavily. Victor felt a little relieved. After all, he had no one to share his grief with in such an adult manner. He felt like a part of his pain had come out, making room for something good and bright. They talked until late. It was so nice to sit like this, somewhat like a family. Sometimes you meet someone, and they immediately become close and dear to you. Since then, Mia and Izzy became best friends, even though there was a 3-year age difference between them. It turned out that the girls were born on the same day, the 5th of August. They never got bored together. Even their interests complemented each other wonderfully. Izzy wrote fairy tales and funny stories, while Mia illustrated them. They ended up with real little books. Listen, Mia, let's make some books with fairy tales and pictures and send them to that clinic in Barcelona where I had my surgery. Let the kids who are sick and being treated there read our books. And we'll make them postcards with wishes too. Let's do it. Mia's eyes lit up. Let's do it properly, Izzy continued in a businesslike tone. We have a printer at home. I'll print my stories on the computer, then Mom and I will print them out and paste your beautiful pictures. Yes. And we can also include, the author. Yes, exactly, the author. Let's use some made-up name. For example, Garden Fairy, how about that? I like it. The girls burst into laughter. Victor, Mia, and the Lopez family became such good friends that they felt like they had known each other for many years, or even were related. Mia felt like she had a little bit of a mom again. Agatha often helped the girl with her hair, picked out clothes together with her. Victor found it easier too. Dealing with a growing granddaughter alone was tough. Again, there was someone to spoil them and Mia with various treats. And so the school year came to an end. Izzy and Mia started their holidays. The girls spent all their time making those books they so wanted to take to San Juan de Dios. It was so amazing that children of the third millennium were interested not in gadgets and shooters, but in creating homemade books, and for sick children at that. They were indeed unusual girls, not of this world in the best sense of the word. Mia, have you already drawn the pictures for the story about the greedy hamster? Izzy asked. Yes. I've drawn 2 versions. Choose which one fits better, Mia replied, rummaging through a folder with her numerous drawings. Let's add some butterflies too, it doesn't look very cheerful without them. Let there be butterflies. Blue ones. Blue? Yes, blue will be perfect. I could watch them for hours, Agatha said, entering the bedroom where her husband was fixing the loose door of the wardrobe. Making books for sick children. It's so noble and grown up. Did you visit the girls? Yeah, they're so serious, like business ladies. I think our daughter has grown too much, my darling. Isn't it time for us to think about a second child? I have absolutely no one to play with. Filippo. What are you talking about? His wife smiled flirtatiously. We need to get Izzy back on her feet first. We will. Besides, I've been offered a new job. What job? Well, transporting prohibited substances, of course, what else? He winked at Agatha. I'll buy myself some dark glasses and a black cap and go around shady places, persuading young people to use all sorts of nasties, Filippo laughed. Phil, what are you doing? You scared me to death. I thought my husband had gone crazy and taken the wrong path. I'm serious. What job? Distributing medications from the warehouse to pharmacies and medical facilities. And that means completely different money, darling. It's not like driving a minibus. He grabbed his wife and started spinning her around the room. Let me go, colleague, his wife laughed. Why, colleague? Are you planning to become a driver too? No, my dear, I'm a nurse and I'll stay one. In case you're not aware, I'm at least somewhat involved with various medications and medical equipment. You will probably be delivering them to our clinic too, right? Perhaps, colleague. He twirled Agatha around the room with renewed vigor. The significant day had arrived. The books were ready to be sent to the San Juan de Dios clinic. Victor volunteered to personally take them. The girls would have insisted on going with him, but Izzy couldn't sit for long due to her injury, so they stayed home and headed to splash around in the pool near the Lopez house. Izzy, did you remember the postcards? Asked Mia, her friend. Of course, I didn't forget. There's one in each book, Izzy replied. That's great. Now the kids will read them and be happy. And hopefully recover quickly, Izzy added. Exactly, shouted Mia and dashed towards the pool. It was the girls' birthday. They decided to celebrate at the Carino house. The day before, Filippo and Agatha brought balloons and flags to decorate the gazebo. They decided to celebrate there, as a family, without guests. Early in the morning, Agatha rushed to Victor's house to prepare everything for the celebration. Finally, everything was ready. It was time to start the party. The girls dressed in identical dresses, only Mia's was lemon-colored, and Izzy's was pale blue. Together, they blew out the candles on the big cake and unwrapped their gifts. Oh! It's a smartphone, exclaimed Mia. Now I can call you whenever I want. Awesome! Izzy hugged her friend. What's in your box? Mia asked. Let's see. Oh! Is this really? Mia, now we can make hundreds of books, no, even thousands. What is it, Izzy? It's such a miracle device that can make booklets, thin little books, like we used to. Only now it will be much faster and prettier. It's called a booklet maker. I won't even be able to pronounce such a word, Mia laughed. I've been begging my parents for one since we met. I knew right away we'd make wonderful books. While the girls marveled at their gifts and made plans for them, someone called Victor, and he went out of the gate. He returned with a large box tied with a beautiful pink ribbon. Grandpa Victor, what are you carrying? Izzy jumped up from the inflatable mattress they had laid on the grass with Mia. Girls, come here quickly. You've got a gift. Who brought it? Agatha asked. It's the editor of the children's magazine. What editor? Mia was surprised. Just the day before yesterday, Victor began to explain, I got a call. It was the mother of a little boy who was in the same clinic with him. She's the editor of a children's magazine. She asked for permission to publish your fairy tales along with illustrations. I can't believe my ears. Izzy shouted, switching to athlete mode. Mia, we're getting published. What does that mean? She asked confusedly. It means our books will turn into a magazine. Imagine, you open a magazine, and there's a story about a grumpy hedgehog that I wrote, with your amazing drawings. That's what it means. Izzy couldn't stand still and kept dancing around. Quiet down, Izzy, her father told her. You're not supposed to jump yet, remember what the doctor said. And what's in the box? Agatha approached the gift and tapped it lightly. Hurry up and open it. Grandpa Victor said cheerfully. The gift for the girls turned out to be a set of nesting dolls. One box was nestled inside another, needing to be unwrapped, opened, and discover what lay inside the next one. The girls' curiosity piqued. What could it be? Finally, they reached the smallest box and, upon opening it, found two more inside. One was labeled Mia, and the other Izzy. Pencil, said Mia. I just got a pen, Izzy replied. Agatha came closer and took her daughter's box. Oh wow! There's also a pendant in here, she exclaimed. Indeed, in each box lay half of a pendant on a string, and when they were joined, they formed a miniature apple. How symbolic, Agatha said dreamily. You're nowhere without each other, my little berries. Only together will you create true masterpieces. Be friends, girls, and create together. Then everything will work out. And now let's go to the table. Your gifts aren't going anywhere. Let's go, the friends chorused. Wine? Victor offered Agatha. No, Victor. Today just water and a little juice. Are you by any chance? Yes, Victor, we're expecting a baby. Filippo declared solemnly. Congratulations. We'll have another little one, Victor smiled. It sounded so warm, as if they were all from one family. And they were. It didn't matter that it consisted of two separate entities, not connected by blood ties. As darkness fell, fireworks began to light up the sky with bright, sparkling flashes. Everyone watched them with bated breath. Each one was lost in their own thoughts. Agatha and Filippo thought about becoming happy parents for the second time soon. The girls dreamed of becoming celebrities, and Victor thought about how nothing lasts forever, and one should cherish every moment, trying to fill it with joy and turn it into a minute, an hour, or a whole life. Dear viewers, if you enjoyed the story, please support the video by liking it and leaving a comment. Thank you very much.
Alright, everyone's presentations are done. Nick, the manager, said as he tried to move the discussion forward. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me and began to speak. There's apparently someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. His lackey, Mike, of course, agreed with Nick. I'm leaving. After leaving the meeting room, I started to shut down my computer. I noticed that an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking, there's no point in speaking up, no one will listen, I went home quietly. The next day, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. He was staring at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick? Is something wrong? Mike looked at the screen with him. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Knowing the reason for Mike's distress, I thought to myself, serves them right. My name is Adam. My mother passed away when I was in the 9th grade, and I was raised by my father. Well, you could hardly call it being raised. After my mother passed, my father changed. He drowned his sorrows in alcohol, and though he still went to work, he squandered our living expenses on horse racing. Because of that, I had to start working part-time as soon as I entered high school. Every month, I went to the convenience store with bills in hand that couldn't be auto-deducted from my father's account. Even though I endured it because I didn't want to be alone, I reached my limit in my second year of high school and dropped out. I found a live-in job at a distant inn. Thank you for everything. The day I left home, my father, still staring at the TV, spoke. Take care. That was our last conversation. Back then, 18 wasn't the age of majority, so I needed my father's permission to work, and I couldn't hide my place of employment. Yet, my father never visited me even once. I kept working just to survive, and before I knew it, I was 42. Years of hard work paid off, and I was transferred to the headquarters. I was thrilled to be recognized by the company, as I thought I'd be working in the field until retirement due to my lack of formal education. Listen up. Our work can change the future of our employees. Don't drag us down. On my first day after the transfer, Nick, dressed in an expensive suit, spoke sternly. There was a reason for this. Our inn was located in a prominent tourist destination, known so well that everyone in the state could sing its commercial jingle. At its peak, we had 5 locations within the state. But that was long ago. Due to financial difficulties and aging facilities, only the place where I had worked for many years and the original establishment remained. I was prepared to lose my job anytime, but now there was a glimmer of hope. With the rise of social media, the tourist area where the inn was located started gaining attention again. Depending on how hard the sales department, where I was transferred, worked, we could either thrive or be forced to give up this prime location to the new hotel chains continuously popping up. For Nick, who had switched careers from another industry to strengthen our sales, this was a battle he couldn't afford to lose. I understood why he had to be strict. I will do my best. Nick sneered at my enthusiastic declaration. Did you not hear what I said? I'm sorry. I thought I was listening carefully. Out of habit from years of customer service, I apologized reflexively, though I had no idea what had offended him. Someone was watching me with a smirk. In this department, there are those who are expected to excel and those who have been shoved here because they have nowhere else to go. You are the latter. It was Mike, the section chief. He's 7 years younger, at 35. But he was called to headquarters much earlier than I was and had been moving around within the headquarters ever since. I'm not jealous, but I can't accept that he's my boss. Graduating from a prestigious university, he has an unusually high pride and caused many problems as a newbie, making things very difficult for me when I was the front desk leader. When I found out Mike was transferred to the sales department a month before me, I was disheartened. Mike is right. With just a middle school diploma, there's not much you can do. Don't even think about achieving results. As if I didn't exist, Nick remarked, I'm thirsty. Mike eagerly ran to the coffee maker. It seems Mike is Nick's lackey. I regretted being happy about my transfer to headquarters, wishing I had stayed on site forever. Send a direct mail to every company on this list by the end of the day. Nick only assigned me tasks that even a new graduate could handle. What? There are over 1,000 companies. You want me to send to all of them by today? Yes, if you and your fellow misfits split the work, even those with nowhere else to go should finish by today. I glanced at the employees typing away expressionlessly. They were worn out from customer service, only thinking about leaving on time, or were women reassigned after having children, with zero motivation for work. Even Sam, a new graduate from the same university as Mike, who was supposed to be among the expected achievers, had no enthusiasm for the job, having joined the company wanting to do customer service. I don't care what they say, I plan to quit anytime, he said. Only Nick and Mike were highly motivated, making all the decisions between the two of them. I originally only wanted to work at the inn to survive and had no particular attachment to this job. I swallowed my words, thinking I had no right to reprimand them. About a month after the transfer, Nick told us with a frustrated look. To commemorate the 50th anniversary, we've decided to create a plan exclusive for one group per day. Originally, Mike and I were supposed to come up with it, but our president, Mr. Thompson, insists on hearing everyone's opinions. So, you all get a chance. As Nick explained, Mike began handing out prints. Make sure not to embarrass Nick. If your ideas are half-baked, you'll have to redo them. It seemed that they had printed his handwritten notes by Mr. Thompson, which included several questions and a section for free responses. It made sense why Nick had to seek our input, given that all responses had to be submitted to Mr. Thompson. We were given a week to think about it, and a meeting was scheduled to compile our ideas. My plan is to let guests enjoy both the old and modern America. Nick began the presentations. Guests would watch a master confectioner at a nearby traditional sweet shop make sweets in front of them. The welcome drink would be premium tea in a bottle. Nick's plan was certainly attractive. After his presentation, Nick called on us to present in the order we were seated. Just as I stood up for my turn. All right, everyone's presentations are done. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me. There's someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. He was likely talking about me. I joined the company as a part-timer and was made a full-time employee when I turned 20. That was 20 years ago, so Nick and Mike probably had no chance to know until recently. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. After that, Nick kept creating opportunities to solicit everyone's opinions, purposefully excluding me from speaking. The meeting unexpectedly heated up and went past the scheduled end time. A few people asked to leave, and the discussion continued with the remaining few. Still here? Normally, you'd leave in that situation. Though I had no attachment to the job initially, hearing kind words from customers made me want to make them happier. For someone like me, with nowhere to go, the inn was my home and customer service was my life. I felt pathetic about my current self. I'm leaving. I left the conference room and started shutting down my computer. I noticed an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking no one would listen to what I had to say anyway, I quietly went home. The next day, while preparing the DM as instructed, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. In his haste to stand up, he hit his knee on the desk. He stared at his computer screen, his face pale. "Nick! What's wrong?" Mike, thinking he should be the first to rush over, approached Nick while still wearing his coat. He peered at the screen with Nick. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Who is responsible for this company? Nick, more irritated than ever, asked, and Mike answered without checking. Probably Sam. Sam wasn't there because he was attending a morning training session for new hires. Nick gave up on getting angry and returned his gaze to the screen. They were looking at an email that arrived right after the end of the working day yesterday. Apparently, no one, including me, had checked it before leaving. The email was from a large company that used us for their annual employee trips. The president and executives of that company also frequently used our services personally. President of the company, Mr. Mason himself, had declared that neither he nor his company would ever use our services again. Well, some companies cancel their employee trips or stop using our services due to financial struggles. Let's just move on. Mike kept wiping the sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief. Knowing why Mike was so agitated, I quietly watched their interaction. Do you know how much revenue we get from that company? We can find other guests to fill the rooms, but we'll lose the banquet costs, gift shop revenue, rental car fees, and more. Moreover, the gifts were supposed to be prepared by the traditional confectionery shop involved in Nick's proposed plan. If it's known that we incurred such a huge loss at this critical time, Nick's position in the company would be jeopardized. Nick took a deep breath, seemingly trying to calm himself. All right, Mike. Go to New York right now and apologize to Mr. Mason. What? You're coming with me, right? I have urgent work to do. I trust you, which is why I'm entrusting this to you. Please. Mike, believing Nick's sincerity, agreed with a determined look on his face, saying, yes. That's Nick for you. Even if Mike went to apologize, Nick would shift all the blame onto him if the client didn't change their mind. Well, it was Mike's fault to begin with, so it served him right. About 3 hours later, Sam answered a call from somewhere and repeatedly apologized, saying, I'm very sorry. Everyone watched to see what was happening. After ending the call, he informed Nick with a weary tone. When Mike arrived at the client's company, he only made things worse, further infuriating Mr. Mason. He was demanding, get his boss here immediately. It was no wonder Sam was exhausted, dealing with such a call right after returning from training. What is that idiot doing? All right, Adam, you're coming with me. If sacrificing Mike didn't work, then I must be next. Normally, I'd want to refuse at all costs, but I saw an opportunity in this situation. If I can be of assistance, I'd be happy to join you. I obediently followed Nick, and we flew to New York. When we introduced ourselves at the reception, it became clear how serious the situation was, as the receptionist personally escorted us to the president's office. Angry voices leaked through the door, making both Nick and me uneasy. Excuse me. I'm Nick, the supervisor. I understand my subordinate has caused you trouble, and I deeply apologize. Nick, with his experience in the corporate world, knew enough to offer an apology before excuses. However, his customer service skills left much to be desired. I sighed as I saw Mike trembling like a small dog in the corner of the room. What kind of training are you giving your subordinates? Mr. Mason glared at Nick with a red face. The intensity of his gaze made even Nick take a step back. Regrettably, I joined this company only 2 years ago and was unaware of Mike's issues. I should have identified his shortcomings sooner. Indeed. I should have realized sooner. No sensible person would come to apologize and then give a lengthy presentation on the drawbacks of not using their inn. Nick froze, his mouth slightly open. Suspecting the worst, I picked up the documents that had fallen to the floor. It seemed Mike hastily prepared these documents on the plane, listing the disadvantages. Disadvantage 1: if you change the venue for the company trip, employees might suspect it's for cost-cutting reasons, leading to a negative impression. Reading it aloud half-jokingly, Nick snatched the papers from my hand and checked the contents with a furious expression. Among the stack of documents was a receipt from a nearby convenience store's copy machine. I felt a pang of dread. hoping he hadn't shown the receipt as well. What do you think he said when I asked what kind of nerve he had to do this? I'm very sorry. Faced with the dire situation, Nick must have thought there was nothing left to do but apologize. In a voice smaller than I'd ever heard from him, he uttered words of apology. He said, "I'm a Harvard graduate. I don't believe I said anything wrong." Mike! What have you done? Forgetting his plan to pin the blame on Mike, Nick yelled loudly, even in front of Mr. Mason. "I didn't do anything wrong." "You're still saying that? Look at him." Mike pointed at me with a shaking hand. "I was assigned to headquarters in my 20s and now I'm a section chief. This guy only made it to headquarters at 42. Everything I've done proves I was right. So why are we losing the contract?" Having said his piece, Mike collapsed to the floor. "Of course. You were sent there because you had nowhere else to go." Mike never expected to hear such words from someone he looked down upon. He lunged at me, and Nick hurriedly stepped in to stop him. "Mr. Thompson told me Mike is a quick thinker, and to take good care of him." There's no way he was pushed aside. "Don't make things worse here." "He didn't say quick thinker, he said only quick-witted, didn't he?" I don't remember that part. I recalled the many troubles Mike caused when he was a newbie. When Mike was on the front line, his pride was so high that he never apologized to customers. Customer service, especially in our job, doesn't work alone. It brings both good and bad situations. If the front staff or housekeepers made mistakes, or the cleaning company didn't properly clean a room, one had to apologize to the customers regardless of personal fault. Mike, in such situations, would never apologize, insisting he wasn't at fault. This often angered customers, and as the front desk leader, I frequently had to apologize on his behalf. He caused complaints and disrupted operations, which is why he was quickly moved to headquarters. In departments where he didn't interact directly with customers, his quick thinking was beneficial and things went well. But it seemed his flaws were starting to show. Corporate reservations are supposed to be entered into the system by the sales representative. But a quick check yesterday revealed that more than 10 items were missing from the client's reservation. The handover document clearly stated what needed to be prepared. Why didn't you enter it into the system? Why do we have to give them special treatment? Filling rooms near the banquet hall, setting up all the food in advance. Specifying the brand of wine, they're too demanding. No wonder he always angered customers, I thought, feeling a headache coming on. Grouping them in rooms near the banquet hall is for our benefit too. It makes it easier for the staff to set up beds and serve breakfast since everyone's schedule is synchronized. As for the other requests, Mr. Mason suggested them to lighten our load. I didn't know that. Nick finally seemed to realize that Mike was the one who had angered the client. What did you say to them? I just told them we wouldn't give them special treatment anymore. We shouldn't waste effort on things that don't bring in money. I was utterly exasperated at his lack of understanding of customer service. Of course, we shouldn't comply with unreasonable demands. But carrying over successful practices from past stays makes customers feel remembered and enhances their experience. Good memories encourage repeat visits. That's part of our job. I looked down at Mike, who was sitting on the floor. In our job, nothing is a waste. Mr. Thompson likely moved you to the sales department, hoping you'd finally understand this. How do you think he feels now that you've failed to meet his expectations? Mike, tears in his eyes, fled the president's office. I was amazed he still hadn't apologized. You have it tough, Adam. It's okay, we're all employees of the same company. I deeply apologize for this disrespectful incident. Especially after all the care you've shown us. If it weren't for you, Adam, I really would have stopped staying here. When I heard you were moving to the sales department, I was willing to reconsider if you handled it. Seeing us talk so amicably, Nick's face contorted. Do you two know each other? Adam's service is excellent. I always requested him specifically. Normally, we don't accept specific staff requests, but we made an exception for Mr. Mason, adjusting my shifts accordingly. He had personally stayed at our hotel just before my transfer, and during casual conversation, I mentioned, I'm moving to the sales department soon. If I hadn't told him then, things could have been much worse. Please continue to take care of us. I look forward to it. On the return flight, Nick awkwardly offered me a can of beer. It's still working hours. Of course, I had no intention of forgiving him for a single beer. Nick might try to pin everything on Mike and avoid any consequences. While pondering this, a startling fact came to light. Nick, the tea bottles for the plan have arrived. I handed Nick a bottle labeled with our inn's name. They look good. What are you talking about? These are plastic bottles. I had assumed we would use the trendy, high-end bottling tea. But what arrived were ordinary plastic bottles of tea with customized labels. The only unique aspect was the label, which had the inn's name, making it look customized. Upon further investigation, I discovered that a substantial amount of money was set to be paid to the tea company. It was priced like bottling tea. Does this plastic bottle really cost $100 each? The tea inside is specially blended for us. The extra cost is for that. Wouldn't it be better to use another tea company? Or is there a specific reason we must use this one? As Nick continued to make excuses, I showed him a printed email. I informed the tea company's president, Mr. Mitchell, that we discovered irregular payments and he confessed. He said you two were high school classmates and planned to split the extra money. That idiot. Why did he confess? That's not important. You should worry about yourself, this could turn into a police matter. Opening the bottle cap, I suggested. How about calming down with this tea? It supposedly has a relaxing effect. Nick drank the tea frantically. In the following days, decisions were made about their fates. Mike was reassigned to the General Affairs Department, with no chance of transfer or promotion, as per Mr. Thompson's orders. As for Nick, since the payment to the tea company hadn't yet been made, he narrowly avoided legal trouble. Instead, he was encouraged to leave the company, and to avoid further complications, Nick submitted his resignation. Rumor has it that connections between HR departments have made it difficult for him to find new employment. Even though it was good to have those two gone, something unexpected happened in the sales department. Everyone became motivated and united in refining the 50th anniversary plan. In the end, my plan was adopted. We collaborated with the Tourist Information Center to provide personalized guides. The plan, tailored to the number of guests, was truly special for the 50th anniversary. Hey, is Adam's family coming to stay? I immediately booked that special plan for my family. Sam noticed it on the reservation list and quickly picked up on it. Yes, I'm inviting my father. That's great. I might invite my parents too. I lacked the courage to face my father just as Adam. But here, with the confidence Mr. Mason praised, I felt ready. The 50th anniversary plan was a perfect opportunity to reconnect with my father. I hoped to bring back the days when we could laugh together as we once did.